Today, Ukrainians conducted yet another HIMARS raid on Russian logistics and batteries, which finally resulted in the collapse of the most formidable Russian strong point in the east. The target of the first HIMARS strike once again became Makiivka. If yesterday Ukrainians destroyed a huge ammunition depot that had just received fresh supplies of shells, then today Ukrainians destroyed a huge oil depot. Russian sources reported that the Russian air defense shot down HIMARS rockets, and the fire was caused by the falling remnants. However, the result suggests otherwise. In the aftermath of a successful strike, at least 5 oil reservoirs were caught on fire. The fire proved to be extremely difficult to put out, and experts estimated that firefighters will not be able to do much until the morning. The target of the second strike became an echelon with equipment that was being transported to the frontline positions through Yasenuvata. The footage shows wrecked freight cars and trucks near the railways. Just like Donetsk, eastern cities are extremely industrialized, which means that they have very well-developed logistics that Russians are constantly using. Unfortunately for Russians, they are closely being monitored. The destruction of multiple ammunition depots, echelons with equipment, oil depots, and a dozen of artillery batteries on such a narrow front line created massive short-term problems for the Russians. And a short-term decrease in the ability of the Russians to conduct defensive operations is all Ukrainians needed. Today, Ukrainian sources reported that Russian forces had problems with deploying their reserves to Klishchivka on time, possibly due to the Ukrainian precision strikes on Russian logistics. Soon, the most prominent Russian sources started raising the alarm that Ukrainians breached Russian defense and took Klishchivka. Interestingly, Ukrainian sources claimed that they have not taken Klishchivka yet. However, the news about the fact that Ukrainians entered it is true. It looks like Russian sources understand that Klishchivka is shortly going to fall and are setting the information conditions for the collapse of the front line. And this is not surprising because the fact that Ukrainians entered the village means that they have cleared the most powerful fortification on the entire front, namely, an extensive trench network on a hill. After destroying a dozen of Russian batteries, the Russian artillery fire significantly decreased and made these positions that were already in a salient even more vulnerable. Russian sources reported that Ukrainians had opened 4 axes of advance, 2 north of the village and 2 south of the village. All Ukrainian assault units necessarily leveraged the tree lines that they have cleared east of the canal. One group successfully entered the village from the south, got into the Russian rear, and caused a lot of problems for the Russian forces. This operation was a massive success because by drawing Russian attention and resources to the southern part of the village, Ukrainians made sure that Russians had fewer troops to protect the most powerful fortification. Overall, Ukrainians established control over the trenches, but more importantly, the local heights. As you can see, the next Russian defensive positions are located in the lowlands, which means that moving further will be much easier. And this is exactly why Russian analysts are so concerned about this direction and urge the Russian command to hold the line no matter the losses. The Russian command once again seems to be making a grave mistake, prioritizing holding settlements instead of tactical heights around these settlements. Such a setting is very beneficial for Ukrainian assault units.